create an app that helps patrons find programs at libraries throughout the community, not just at their home library. As many of our own patrons attend programs at our library, the library down the road, and other surrounding communities, we wanted to provide a way for them to find information about those programs easily and quickly. We wanted this app to work on multiple platforms, any smartphone, and if you don't have a smartphone, on your computer. And we knew we wanted to build it from scratch. As it turns out, that's really hard to do technologically. And as you'll see, we had no idea what we were getting into. Just to give you a little taste of our past 10 months, we now present you with how to create an ILEAD project in 10 mostly, but definitely not always, easy steps. But that's okay.
Pointed to the computer.
I did.
Does that work with Google Docs?
Yeah,
It did work with Prezi.
Okay.
Doesn't matter.
So step number 1 is getting to know your team. We all know as librarians that teamwork is essential for getting things done. It's often overlooked, but it is essential. As librarians, we are constantly required to work in teams. Sometimes it goes okay, and sometimes it doesn't. But luckily, this is a story of success. Our team came together because of a variety of connections to the Forest Park Public Library, which is a small library right outside of Chicago. We've all worked there at some point in time. Sarah Beth still works there. Youth services, adult services, as managers, as paraprofessionals, as interns. And what's really great about Forest Park is that they let us get to try things. So we all have that in common. And that is why we wanted to join ILEAD. We were really interested in learning more about technology, getting involved with the library community, and creating a tool we wouldn't normally get to work on. What has made our team particularly successful was not necessarily the tool we created, but about how we worked together. It was a unique experience to enjoy the process and learn from each other while having fun. What I think summed up best was when we were leaving ILEAD the first time, and Lindsey, our partner who's not here, said, "I really, really want to go home, but I'm not sick of you guys at all." So we took that as a sign that this was going to work out. While we were all very invested in the process of ILEAD, we were also very interested in developing our relationship. The library world in Illinois, nationally and especially in the Chicagoland area, is very small. It's so important to get outside of your library, not just to learn from each other and share experiences, but also to work together to create services, programs, and tools. One person can't do it all, and one library can't do it all. Our project is the first step in that direction. Libraries shouldn't be solitary buildings, but collaborative efforts. The more we work together and collaborate, the better we can serve our patrons. Our team took this idea very seriously. By respecting each other, being honest, and communicating, we were able to work together extremely well. Our team worked fluidly but very loosely. No one person rose up to take charge, and we were able to share responsibilities. And I think, especially considering the recent mergers, that this needs to be the norm. I've been on a lot of teams, and this has been one of the best experiences. I think not only based on our friendship, but also because of our shared vision for libraries. When you're working on something totally new, super complex, and uncertain, it's really wonderful to be able to work with honest people who you feel comfortable asking questions with and know who you can rely on. So I'll take you to step 2. Ooh, you want to do it? Yeah. Thanks.
The planning of our project idea took many turns. Our initial idea was to create a Yelp-like application for library programming. So it was the central hub that librarians could utilize, users or patrons could utilize. They were both seen as content creators because we really wanted to tap into social media as it's becoming the norm and use that for community engagement. However, this was just the beginning of our discussion of what our project would actually be, and through discussion we decided that we should move towards the mobile app because this is becoming ubiquitous technology. We should probably consider that, and we did. But with this new format, that original idea just went out the window. suddenly we all had new ideas and we all saw different visions of how the mobile app should work, who it should target, what color it should be, and what our mascot should be. And so we quickly lost focus. And then, right before we came to Springfield for the first time, we had an email sent out with the subject, "Best idea yet." And that was this fancy idea of having a QR code scan, that then you scan your barcode for your library card and automatically you're registered for a program. So it was really great in theory, didn't really happen. And then from that best idea, it came about 20 other best ideas, all through a thread of email. So we went from this QR code thing to, oh, let's do early literacy and have some book tie-ins and have activities for our patrons to do and really just focus on the parenting community. That went out the window pretty quickly. And then we had this one cool thing idea, but no one really knew what that one cool thing would be. So that kind of went away. And we really had no vision for our project. It was lost. And we didn't really find it when we came to Springfield either. That first day here, we were just incredibly overwhelmed with all the new information. When David Linkus talked about joining the conversations in your community, we're like, yeah, we need to do that. And then with Eli Nyberger's discussion of the future of libraries and librarians and what their role would be, we really considered that too. We wanted something to be sustainable. And then finally with Beth Tench and her creative process, that really affected us and how we wanted to approach this, and also her concept of using the internet to get people off the internet. We really liked that too. So how are we going to put all this together? We have a muddled view of what our project idea should be, and it wasn't working out so well, and so we quickly became as frazzled as our librarian from our video. We were all pulling our hair out. So the discussion in the car on the way home was as frantic as our discussions here. We were still kind of panicking, but still talking, which was important. And then we decided to regroup and define our individual libraries goals. What could we use to bring back to our communities, what was practical, and what would meet all of our needs. And that really helped us discuss the pros and cons of certain formats. So we discussed social media. Okay, this is something that's already being done. Most of our libraries are using it. Can we really do anything new with it? We discussed the pros and cons of a mobile app. Do we even know what a mobile app is, how it works? Can we sustain it? How much will it cost? Again, what color will it be? We were really concerned about it. And we also discussed the issue of content creation. Do we really want to burden librarians, asking them to participate in our project by having them do even more work than they're already doing? Or could we get around that using open source calendar software? And then finally, we had a mixed target audience. We wanted to reach out to the professionals who were doing the programs or who would be doing programs, but we also wanted to reach out to the people who would be coming to the programs. So how could we merge all of that together? And that finally led us to deciding to let go of social media. We would hope to utilize it in a different way, but it wouldn't be our primary focus for our project idea, and we decided that the mobile app was the way to go, and this helped us redefine our mission, and then we were able to move forward from there.
Oh, sorry, it worked.
Okay, so step number 3, approach projects the Beth Tench way. All 5 of us were extremely impressed with Beth Tench at our first ILEAD session in Springfield. And even at work now, when I do something new, I always think, what would Beth do? So she gets her own slide. And we've really tried to channel Beck and what she taught us throughout this whole process. And really what that meant for us was really trying to do something new. So like Amy said, we had come up with some projects that centered around, some project ideas that centered around social media and things like that. But we all kind of felt like we had been there, done that. And then we started talking about how, what were some of the trends in libraries. You know, reference desks are dying because Google is ubiquitous. People aren't coming in for books anymore because they all have e-readers. And so programming, we thought, is really something that is still very important for libraries. We are community hubs. We are bringing people together. We are building our communities. So in order to do that, we, like Amy said, we decided on the app because it was probably about as cutting edge as we could fathom for ourselves for a project at the time. So we didn't just, decide to do an app and call a developer and call it a day. We really put a lot of work into research researching the app. So if you remember from our poster session last time we were in Springfield, we discovered HTML5, which is becoming the new standard for how mobile web pages are built. And we kind of had to learn then what app technology was in comparison to HTML5, which blew our minds pretty much. And so we weighed the pros and cons and really learned a lot through that process. And then the last thing that Beck really taught us was not to be afraid to fail and not to be afraid to embrace the experiment rather than coming up with something perfect in the end. So while we did come up with a really great project that we're really excited to show off, we didn't place any unrealistic expectations on ourselves of having something completely perfect at the end. We all really embraced the process and tried to learn as much as we could throughout. So step number 4, ask for help. It's important. And this is where our community representatives came in. Our mentor, Elsie Martinez, she reminded us a lot, don't forget to talk to your community representatives, which was very important. We had a wide array of community representatives. We had a local mom, we had reference librarians, we had some of our IT staff, so we really got a lot of different feedback. Our patron representatives, they kind of reminded us why we were doing this. Not a lot of people know that if they have a library card for one town, that they are still free to attend most of the programs in the neighboring towns. And they're not willing to go to 10 different websites to find out everything that's going on that they're interested in. So we knew we needed to create one place for our patrons to kind of go and find everything, to realize that they can attend these other programs at neighboring libraries. And then what our coworkers taught us, our coworker representatives taught us, was that, hey, this is a great idea, but if it's not easy for me to use, I'm not going to buy in. So we thought, okay, how are we going to talk every library in Illinois into entering their event data, which led us to come up with the idea of trying to use, like the engaging ones, an XML feed from Evance, which is the database that most of us use for event registration. And that seemed like the simplest idea, yet we had absolutely no idea how to go about doing that, which leads to the next slide. No really good IT guy or girl.
And this is one of the biggest lessons I learned. Of course, we all know IT guys are super important, but what we didn't know is that we're not techies. We think that we're really good at computers because we help people all day, but we are not techies. I know, it was kind of a shocker to us too, but we innocently thought we could just make an app. Yeah, that should be no problem. And as Kate said, we did some research and we had a very rude awakening. Well, we could envision what we wanted, and certainly we had the color down, but we didn't have how to go about making it, and even worse, we couldn't figure out how to even explain what we wanted in technological terms. It was very, very difficult. So what we did was we needed to find someone who could help us translate what we wanted into techie language. And what we did was we found my IT guy, Ron. A lot of programmers don't necessarily speak librarian language and vice versa. It was a surprise because we're always talking about usability and making it user-friendly. And sometimes techie people aren't necessarily as involved in that. Design is not really always an issue for them. So it was interesting to sort of bridge the gap. It's sort of like translating Spanish to English. They both are great languages, but they don't always match up. So that's where Ron came in. My library is really lucky to have a great IT department and some really great IT people, but Ron was really one of our saving graces. We were lucky because he already worked in the library, so he could understand our goals, but he also could speak the language, and that was invaluable. I know not every library is lucky enough to have a Ron or an IT department. I know that I'm very lucky, but the thing is, there are people out there, so that's what I really wanted to encourage people about. Go out into your community. That could be your physical community, it could be on Twitter. There are people out there who know what they're doing and are going to be willing to help you. We don't need to all go out and get master's degrees in computer science. It's just not going to happen, at least not for me. But there are people who are definitely willing to work with that. So that is a really good tip. Know a good IT guy or girl. So.
So really, the progression of our project was largely due in part to our meeting format. We had a lot of difficulty trying to schedule our meetings initially while we were still here in Springfield for the first time. The work week was just nuts for all of us because we each have unique work schedules. We're doing programs, we're working the desk, we're outside the library doing outreach, so it was pretty much impossible to narrow one date, but we did it once during the work week via Adobe Connect, and it was an absolute disaster. We all had technical difficulties of some sort. One of our team members couldn't even connect, so they were totally out of the loop. And then even with a team leader at that point trying to keep discussion going, it really wasn't a productive discussion. We were still in the brainstorming phase, and then you're using a technology like a virtual meeting to try to discuss brainstorming. You're talking over each other, or you're not talking at all. It really was a mess. So from then on, we opted for in-person meetings only, using email as our communication method in between. We're fortunate to all live geographically close to one another, and we were able to host our meetings in our homes. And with that, we developed a post-rotation schedule that worked out really well. And by proxy, the hostess became the meeting leader for each meeting. So the meeting leader was responsible for creating the agenda, keeping us all on task during the meetings, and most importantly, providing snacks. So, to go through some of ours, we over fried seafood. Actually, that was here in Springfield, our first team dinner out here. And then we laughed over candy and M&Ms. That was really delightful. We cried over cookies out of frustration. And brownies kind of got us back on track, and then finally we needed some true brain food, so we got some complex carbs with the bagels. But really we relied heavily on the vending machines here. That was what really led to our success, was all the food. But really, the rotation of leadership was great. It was highly successful. There were many benefits to it. The first being that there wasn't one person who dominated, who was very controlling or overpowered the project and the meetings. Sometimes that happens in teamwork. You have that one person who wants to do everything and then everyone backs away, or they just don't want to participate. But we had a really good group dynamic, and we learned that too from the Parker team building survey. It was an even spread of the 4 types of team members. And at certain points, one characteristic was heightened. So when you were the meeting leader, you automatically became the communicator and the challenger. That was kind of expected of you, and then everyone else joined in as collaborators and contributors. And that worked out really well. With the rotation as well, we always managed to have one person who was excited and motivated and get everyone back into that happy state of mind. So that kept things even-keeled and not so depressing when we were really frustrated. And we were able to delegate tasks easily without question. Most of the time we were volunteering for things that matched our skills and interests. So Sarah Beth has grant writing experience and took on creating our RFP, which we'll discuss later. Kate has a graphic design background and took on designing our poster and working on our button design, which some of you still have, so thanks for that. I'm super organized guy, so I took over the paperwork kind of aspect of it, doing the financial report, creating Google Docs, stuff like that. Alicia became our honorary techie, using her liaison skills to translate the tech language, and then also creating our survey that you all took and our QR code. And then finally, Lindsey, who is not with us today, she epitomized professionalism for us, and she took on working with our developer and reaching out to David Linkus and Eli Nyberger when we were looking for some feedback. So that really helped and keep the group dynamic going, and it really was a seamless process on that end, on sticking together, knowing that we all signed up for this together, supporting one another, never being told you need to do something. We always held ourselves accountable because of our commitment to our team and to the profession. So we were lucky to enter and exit this process as a unified team.
I can't do it. You do it. All right. So, y'all have heard us talk a lot about our process. And I bet you're wondering, did you actually do anything? We did. Don't worry. We talked so long about what we wanted. No. Hold on a sec. My notes turned off. I didn't know that could happen. Okay, we're back on track. We thought we knew what we wanted, but we realized we really had to put that into something that somebody could help us make a workable app, because we knew we couldn't do it. Even though we did all 5 of us take that session at the June ILEAD where we learned how to make an app, and I did learn I could make a really great choose your own adventure story, but that was not going to fly. So this is where creating an RFP comes in. Now, for those of you lucky enough to never have had to make an RFP, either for ILEAD or just in work in general, an RFP is a request for proposal. It's the first step in your relationship with a developer. We put out there what we want, when we want it, and very importantly, how much we are willing to pay for it. A big hurdle we have in creating our RFP is it is really specific. We, as you know, had spent a lot of time thinking about our colors and a lot of time looking into HTML5 versus native apps. And we're confident in those two things, but we didn't know a lot about posting. We didn't know a lot about how exactly you told somebody you wanted them to take those RSS feeds and do something with them. So we really worked with our tech friends on actually creating the language that went into the RFP. Now, I'm just going to take you very briefly through this because I know when I was trying to write this, I couldn't find one. I couldn't find one online. I had never done one. So I'm just going to show you very quickly. If anybody ever wants this, if they want to make an RFP, you're welcome to have it and refer to it. We created a lovely cover sheet because we are professionals and like pretty things. This first page sort of summarizes our project in a whole. It says that exactly what we want to create, an app that connects patrons and libraries, not necessarily just the library whose newsletter they receive. Importantly, it has a target audience. Now, we want everyone to be included, but we sort of realized that everyone is as much of a target audience as kids, or as senior citizens, or as the ESL community, because something that was designed for kids isn't good for everyone. So it really had to be look friendly to everyone. This page, this project details page, is where we actually got into the nitty-gritty of what we expected a developer to do for us. We had to tell them exactly, we want A, B, C, and D from you. And then you can see we have a budget and a timeline, which we sort of just made up, but you probably want a timeline. And then we thought this was really helpful for us in realizing this is how we want it to connect. We actually came up with a drawing of how we expected each page to go, and then we included that in our RFP. Now, we were totally ready to send this RFP out to a bunch of websites that help connect developers and designers with projects. We were ready, we were going to do it. But luckily, we found a developer through some of our contacts, a great guy named Keske, and I'm not going to try the last name. I think it's Inoue. He's in New York, so again, we did all of our communication through email and all that kind of stuff. But I'm actually going to pass this off to our absent teammate, Lindsey. And you may be wondering where Lindsey is today. She is going to be giving birth in 4 hours to our newest teammate, Ira. So it's really exciting for Lindsey, but she was kind enough in her last days of maternity to record this video.
Hi, ILEAD. Sorry I couldn't be with you guys this week, but I I have a little guy in here who's due any day now, and I didn't want to risk having him in Springfield, so he's out of Chicagoland this week. So, as you can see from the slide, I was in charge of the important business decisions. Well, actually, I was just in charge of coming up with a contract for Kasuki. We all felt that because we were paying him a substantial amount of money to create our mobile app for us, that we wanted some sort of contract to protect us and to make sure that we received our finished product. So, I really didn't know where to start with this one. I found it quite difficult. I've never worked with contracts. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know much about the law. So what I did was, first I talked to Beth and asked her to send me over some sample contracts from companies that the Forest Park Public Library had done some work with in the past to create a website and different web tools. So she sent those over to me, and it turns out that those are more proposals. They weren't real contracts, so it was impossible for me to come up with a contract using those documents. So then I called Kate, and she helped me out a little bit by talking to some colleagues and found just a basic contract that a company used to hire a web designer to create their website. So I took that contract and I modified it to fit our purposes, and that seemed to work out pretty well. I sent it off to Kasuki and he signed it, and now we're all good. We have a contract and we all feel a little bit more protected. I guess what I learned from this experience was that the 21st century librarian is going to have these skills to know how to do this, to know how to hire freelance employees or freelance programmers, because as technology advances, we may not always be able to hire the people on our staffs who have the ability to do this sort of advanced programming. So what I'd like to do personally in the future is maybe take a course on this, learn a little bit more about what's legal and what's not when creating contracts and hiring freelance employees or freelance designers, programmers. So yeah, that's the story of how we got a contract for our mobile app. Thanks guys, really wish I could be there with you. Hope you guys are all having fun, learning a lot. Bye.
All right, so if you know Lindsey, tell her congratulations. She's going to be a mom by the end of the day. Okay, so our last step, we promised we will show you an actual product. But the last thing we want to tell you about that we've been working on is the marketing aspect of this project. We spent so much time learning about technology, learning how to work with developers, all stuff that not only was great for this project, but that we've already been applying to our libraries. But there's this whole other side of it, and that comes in great marketing. Yes, we made a Facebook page, but it doesn't really do anything because we don't have a product to share yet. But the marketing aspect is so much more than that. It's real, true, honest to goodness, getting out there, talking to people. Our project is right now in beta testing. There's some information coming in from RSS feeds, but at the moment it's very limited. And the next step, when we're going to be really honest, we don't know how we're going to accomplish it because it's huge time effort and huge financial effort, is this giant marketing push. The first is organizing libraries to contribute feeds to the site. Once there's a feed in our site, it does not require any more upkeep. But there is going to be some effort from the libraries to just join in. We know that one library may really like it. And that's great, but if the 5 libraries around you don't want to participate, then it doesn't do much because your patrons know how to find your programs. You want them to be able to find the 5 or 6 surrounding libraries. So it's really all the librarians in a community coming together and say, we have all of these programs, we want to start putting them in our calendars in a similar way so that everybody can have access to them. The other side of the marketing is obviously getting it across to patrons. We can get that to our libraries, but it's every librarian who needs to be promoting this and just needs to be saying, you know, oh, you love our programs? Yeah, it's in our newsletter and it's right here on this app. Once you've bookmarked it on your phone, you can just access it forever. Like, it's that simple, but there's a definite education aspect that comes from what we know to communicate that to the librarians. So, we're not sure how, when that part will be accomplished. We obviously love this project and want to find it a great home and great stewards. Because every time we've spoken about this, we gave a great poster presentation at ILA, and people were just like, oh, I want that! Can I have it tomorrow? And we said, no! But hopefully one day I'll be able to say yes. So obviously, at this point, you want to see our project. We've been dragging you along for 10 not-so-easy steps. So with no further ado, I'm going to
Okay, so first we're going to show you, this is a screenshot of our prototype that was sent by Cascade, or sometimes known as Kasuki, depending on your pronunciation. So we'll go to that in Windows Media Player. So this is on an iPhone, but because we created a mobile website, it can be used on Android as well, and from your computers, which is one of our goals. So you'll access a browser. He's doing a local host thing, so bear with me as we go through that. And then there is a homepage, this is not it, but once you click through that, we have 3 categories. We had to limit, otherwise it would be too overwhelming and ugly, and we didn't want it to be ugly. So as he bookmarked it on this interface, it looks like an app, it has the feel of an app. And then you can select a category. We, like I said, chose 3, and then from there we also had to narrow our topics. For participating libraries, they would have to refine their events categories, and that would become a standardization that we would push with our marketing campaign, should it happen. But it gives a description. It's very easy to navigate back. And then this should show you how it takes you to the registration page. So there's direction and web. The web will take you to the registration page on Events, and that's where the patron would enter their required information. And it looks like that. Yeah. Very simple. So they would never have to leave that website because it keeps linking. And then we do have a beta site. If you have your mobile phones, you can scan this. You're welcome to try it out. Anyone? Wasting people moving. We'll give you a second. Okay. Is it working in the back row? No. It's still there. We appreciate your effort.
It's working in the middle.
Excellent. No?
Excellent.
Anyone else want to try? Okay, we're going to move on then to show you some of the technical. What?
One more thing.
Got it. Got it? So we'll show you what it looks like right now.
Sorry.
Okay, so the interface looks similar. Obviously, it's stretched a little bit because it's in beta. But this white space wouldn't be there, to be a little bit more condensed. And then we do have our categories. Once you click on one of these tabs, it should prompt you for your geographic location. We've noticed in testing that it depends on your device. Some Android phones work, some iPhones work, some computers work, but it's not consistent yet. That will be fixed. And then we have our libraries listed, those that are participating. And it lists, right now it's pulling in all programs. We don't have the feed corrected right now, but we wanted to give you an example. Directions take you to the map, and then the web would take you to the page. This one is a drop-in, so no registration required. And then you can go back up. Do you like the color? Pretty, right?
What's the official name of that breed?
Mylib teal.
There you go.
So that's how it will look, but better. Yay! So you can play around with it. We will send out the URL if you didn't get it from the QR code. We'll have that available. And then if you want to go back to our contact information. And then here we are. You can contact us at teammylib@gmail.com or find us on Facebook. And that's where what we'll be utilizing to push this project should it continue, which we hope it will. And that concludes our presentation for today. Questions? Yes.
We've been, I've been working with a company called Polaris, which makes integrated library systems, and partly that's developing a community portal. And what's interesting is what you've discovered and what the previous group discovered is community portals are more about community calendars than anything.
Yes.
And so one of the things that I'm wondering, have you given thought to using this kind of infrastructure to say, this is what's happening in this library, this local arts organization, to expand it out past library events?
That's a great idea.
Yeah. Not so much in my library right now, but I think like Schaumburg and Arlington Heights would probably.
Any calendar that has an RSS XML feed, it can go in it. We've just been focusing on libraries because as you learned, our ideas were sort of infinite. And so this is where we put it right now. There's no reason why it couldn't go to greater to the greater organizations in the company. I mean, yeah. Oh, sorry.
In our library, we've discovered that we need to have multiple categories of programs, like computers and seniors, or computers and young adults, or something like that. Is it going to be able to handle multiple categories?
We tried to pick out keywords that people use all the time to try to get it into the right category. So, for example, for story times for kids, we would look for story time as one word and then story time as 2 words. So that's still a work in progress as well, but I think our developer found a way to identify keywords to get it into the right category.
And truthfully, that was a major issue throughout this whole process. To get it done, we had to sort of go through some of the libraries and sort of fit them into our categories to make them work. But once that's done, it's done, and it can flow nicely into
So it sets the categories, not the calendar you go to? It
sets the category, yeah. Even if all of our libraries use different categories, but so far it's working pretty well to get them into the right category.
That's cool.
So it right now divides by age and then by category.
And my library has about 30 bazillion categories.
Yeah.
But once I got down to limiting it, it was pretty clear what went where. It wasn't difficult to do, and a lot of them weren't used that much. They were, the same ones were used over and over again. So once you figured that out, there was no problem.
Yeah.
I wanted to go back. Did you mention something about registering? So I know we do adult programming. Some of our programs are free and open to the public and no registration required, but some require registration and contact information. So if a library participates and they throw their information out on the calendar, and someone registers through the app, what are we seeing from our end?
You see it exactly like you normally see it. It takes you to your website. So when it says web on the button that says web goes to your registration page.
But if we're doing our registration by hand on paper, that won't work.
Well, there will be a registration on your calendar. It'll just take you to whatever your calendar says. It just takes you to that page. We're not a registration program.
I see.
We're a program finder.
Gotcha.
And also, we are going to have a link to phones so that they could just call and register if that was required.
Right, and we already have Google Calendar with our events. It's just the registration process wouldn't be online. Okay.
And like how we saw with the drop-in, it was just a description of the program. So if yours required in-person registration, it would just be the description saying, please come in for registration.
Somebody else? One more hand?
Are you missing our
You all use emails?
Yes. Yes. Now, my library actually switched during the process. So we were not included in this beta, but we all do now use eVanced. We're using eVanced right now because we know that it all has an RSS feed, but really it could be other ones that could give your information away.
And if it was to be a homegrown kind of app, we would have to modify that because we found through our research at ILEAD that eVance is already in production of their app. We showed them ours, and they're like, yeah, that's nice.
But they haven't done anything like we have.
Yeah. But eventually they'll be rolling out their own, and that's probably going to be a common thing with open source calendar software companies.
All right, thank you very much. Earl Info, you're on deck.